I did keep trying to tell my boyfriend at the time, like, I can't do this, like, I don't want to do this, can I have an abortion? And he was just really opposed to it. He was very much like, that's not on the table. I kind of needed that voice because it helped me stay centered on my own beliefs.
One thing that my dad was told was that my brother won't make it past 11, 12 years old. Puberty was the expected life expectancy for my brother.
How old is he now?
Well, I'm 40 this year, so he'll be 46 in November.
Sometimes people feel they have no choice. They feel cornered. They feel that the walls are closing in on them. We want to be here for everyone, wherever they're at.
It takes a village to raise a child. And so as Sisters of Life and all of our coworkers, we want to be that village. We want to be that family so that women don't feel alone in this.
Hello, my name is Kevin Dunn, and I'm a filmmaker and international speaker from the Hamilton area in Ontario, Canada. This is a special one-hour program. I am fearfully and wonderfully made, featuring the stories of ordinary members of the pro-life movement who defy our present throwaway culture to instead affirm everlasting truths and uphold the sanctity of life. Canada and the United States are among the few countries around the world, China and North Korea included, that permit elective abortion after 20 weeks. Canada, however, is unique in being the only democratic country in the world with zero protection for the preborn. Psalm 139:14 teaches us, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Each of those children lost were beloved by God, unique and known to Him by name. All of us are made in His image and likeness, the image and likeness of the great I Am, and possess incomprehensible worth as a result. This value is inherent. This is not something we need to earn or something that's benevolently bestowed upon us by government. You matter simply because you are. Existence is enough. It is my honor to present 4 ordinary Canadians from various backgrounds who inspire hope by living out the truth that we are all fearfully and wonderfully made. You'll meet Ruth, a young mom who's chosen life when faced with an unplanned pregnancy. Chad, a teacher who hasn't let his disability slow him down. Carol, who runs a crisis pregnancy center in southwestern Ontario. And Sister Antoniana, who is part of a religious community devoted to celebrating the sanctity of life. The fall of Roe v. Wade is the latest development in a war that's been waged in a culture and politics for half a century. Willingly or not, we all play a role in this battle, succumbing to the culture of death in our sinfulness, or building up the culture of life in our sacrifice. These individuals you'll get to know are amazing witnesses to life, to love, and our Lord, and have wisdom beyond their years. Together, they will paint a picture of hope for a brighter future. In this first video, Ruth describes how she found herself pregnant at the age of 19. She and her 18-year-old boyfriend were young and unmarried, and Ruth was scared to be a mom. She was scared to give birth. She, like many women experiencing a crisis pregnancy, felt alone. Thankfully, a crisis pregnancy center was able to provide her with accompaniment through this challenging experience and afterwards too.
I did keep trying to tell my boyfriend at the time, like, I can't do this, like, I don't want to do this, can I have an abortion? And he was just really opposed to it. He was very much like, that's not on the table. And I kind of needed that voice because it helped me stay centered on my own beliefs. I was 19 when I got pregnant, and my husband, well, boyfriend at the time, he was only 18. I was really scared. I didn't know what to do. We weren't married, we were young. Hadn't even gone to like post-secondary or anything. So we didn't have a lot of support, at least that's how I felt, right? I was really scared. I didn't know, where I would live. I didn't know how to raise a child, and I was really scared of becoming a mom. Mike was very supportive of standing by me, but that didn't necessarily mean like that I felt supported, right? I felt very alone, even though he was willing to marry me and take care of us. But I definitely felt like he had no choice. So if anyone's experienced an unplanned pregnancy and they don't know where to go, just hang in there and don't do it alone. I didn't know what to do, so I just Googled it. I, was like, pregnancy help, and I just kind of looked on their website, and then I called and booked an appointment and went and saw them. So I started meeting with someone there, and she kind of helped me work through like what pregnancy is, and also just in my own personal life though, like, do I want to get married? Do I want this? How will my birth look, and like preparing me for those things. I don't think I could have gone through it on my own because I was very isolated. Like, I didn't have my own family support. So having somewhere to go that was like stable and consistent really, really helped. Like, I felt safe here, and like I could just share what was going on without being scared that someone would like say I'm a bad mom. So I was like a little nervous about, having someone else in on the birth because I wasn't even sure I wanted my boyfriend there. I was so scared of it. And I just was like, okay, well, it can't hurt to at least talk to them. So I started meeting with someone here, and that was quite far into my pregnancy. She just, asked me questions about what I wanted during my birth, and was like trying to help me go through kind of like the stages of birth and what I should expect and everything that I didn't know. And it was a little bit nerve-wracking because I was still very, very nervous about giving birth. I didn't want to do it. This doula came with me to my birth, and it was a really intense experience, obviously, birth is. And she was a good support, and it just kind of helped having another woman there that I kind of had learned to trust. And I was able to have my boyfriend with me, and I had midwives, and so I felt very safe, but it was still just a really scary experience when I was going through it. But afterwards, I was like, wow, like I did it, I got through it. Here at the Pregnancy Center in Dunnville, the volunteers and staff are so amazing. It took a lot of months trying to work through it, and my husband had to work 2 jobs, so I hardly ever saw him, and I was like, had to take care of the baby mostly by myself. His family was a good support and came and helped out a lot, but I still felt very alone. And it took like a long time of working through, like my doctor walked with me. They got me help at a place in Grimsby that does mental health stuff. And so just starting to like walk beside these people and continuing to come here to mom group, and there was like peer counseling. So I got to talk to the same person who was my doula, was also my counselor, and so she kind of like, we talked about, postpartum depression and just what was going on in my life, and it was like quite a few months of walking through this. I've become a better mom. Like, there's parenting classes and Bible studies and counseling, just all the support that you kind of need when you're a young mom especially. I've made some friends, and I didn't know anyone else, around my age because I was so young. I didn't have anyone else that was pregnant or, having children, so I felt very lonely, but I was able to at least like see moms about once a week, and that was something I wouldn't have had on my own. I got to go to mom groups and do crafts and do Bible studies, so they kind of walked with me through every stage. I definitely felt like it wasn't just when I was pregnant that they helped. It was throughout, and my oldest is 5.5, and we we still love coming here and still gain something even after all this time. I named her Araya, and we chose that name. We kind of made it up because what we were walking through in that time, it was so dark and unpredictable that we chose to see her as a ray of sunshine. So we named her Araya, and she was really precious, really tiny. She was small, at like 6 pounds. Now she's like 5.5 and super, super friendly. Like, she sees you on the beach and she goes up and like sits beside you and plays with you, and she wants to be your best friend. She loves art, just like me, so I can see her just turning into a bright, beautiful little girl. If I had reacted to my feelings 5 years ago, I wouldn't have a beautiful daughter that I love so much, like my ray of sunshine. By my 4th pregnancy, I had grown from being terrified of birth to feeling, safe, secure, and empowered by it. It was just an amazing birth. I couldn't have asked for a better doula. She supported me, and my husband supported me, and I had an incredible, literally supernatural pain-free birth. And because I had prepared, I had gone from being scared of it to feeling like I can overcome this and I can get through this without, having to be the worst experience. God has taken a hold of me and, helped me completely change my life. I'm not the same person, and, doing Bible studies and having just support that I didn't know I needed has really made a difference. If there's someone out there who has felt any of these things before, has been faced with an unplanned pregnancy and not known what their future would be, I would just say feelings aren't facts. So you're gonna experience a lot of emotions. It's big and scary, and you're not sure what to do, and your emotions are gonna be all over the place, and that's okay. Emotions are there for a reason, but they don't mean that is the truth of the situation. It's okay to feel how you're feeling, but I would just recommend reaching out and finding someone else who can help you work through those. Because when we see something, when we're going through a crisis, it's not always clear, right? Our emotions blind us sometimes, and it's okay to feel those emotions, but that doesn't mean we'll always feel that way. And that's really important to me to remember, because when I'm going through something hard and scary like this, and I feel alone, I can remember that, okay, this is how I feel, but it's not always the truth of the situation. There's always someone there to help. There's always God when you feel completely alone. There's always, a pregnancy center or a support group or a church that is willing to go in and, walk with you when you don't know how to deal with those emotions or where to go from here. I'm not sure what my motherhood journey would have looked like without the pregnancy center, but I know it surely would have been harder than it already was. I think my first reaction to hearing I am fearfully and wonderfully made is being in denial. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm actually not a good person. I don't feel good enough. And I think that that's okay, because I don't have to be good enough when God is, right? And He supplies all my needs, and He has supplied my children with me. My greatest purpose is definitely being a mom. I get to raise the next generation, and they get to go out and make an impact on the world. And I get to, create stable and strong and secure humans that will then impact other ones. And it's this generational thing where I've broken my past and created something new with my children. And that is just the biggest job of all and the best job of all, because they then are going to go out and make another impact, even if it's just with their own families. it does make a difference in who they come in contact with in their futures, and I get to shape that and build that up, and it's just incredible to me. I'm so glad that I didn't abort my first daughter, because I would have looked back on that with so much regret, right? Realizing that there was a human being that could have been, right? That was fearfully and wonderfully made by God, and trying to take that into my own hands. I'm so glad I didn't. I am so glad.
I don't know if you caught the quotation, a child is one of the greatest gifts from God. Looking at a baby's little nose, their soulful eyes, their wispy baby hair, really emphasizes the truth behind, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. How marvelous it is that God, the Creator, allows us to partake firsthand in the creation process, to entrust us with the treasure that is new life. At the same time, that is scary. It's a huge responsibility. Ruth's story makes it clear how literally vital crisis pregnancy centers are. We'll hear shortly from the director of one. Next, though, I'd like to introduce you to Chad, a high school music teacher from Hamilton, Ontario, who was born prematurely and now lives with cerebral palsy. He will share, too, how his brother Daryl, also born prematurely and disabled, defied expectations. Not expected to live past puberty, he is now 46 years old and Chad is 40.
One thing that my dad was told was that my brother won't make it past 11, 12 years old. Puberty was the expected life expectancy for my brother.
How old is he now?
Well, I'm 40 this year, so he'll be 46 in November. I had a principal say to me one time before I got hired that whether I realize it or not, my students will learn from me the second I wheel into the classroom. And that's not something that I ever thought about, because this is just an extension of who I am. It doesn't define me, it's just my way of getting around. I wanted to teach music from the time I was 16 years old, and so it's a bit of a dream come true to be teaching in my old high school and loving coming to work every day. I've been blessed to work with teenagers in a high school environment for the last 5 years, and I tell my students, as soon as you tell yourself you can't, you've already failed. It's the power of positive thinking, and it's modeling that for them. And I kind of chuckle and laugh when I've had parents of students tell me how inspirational I am, or that their son or daughter that's awesome. Inspiration is everywhere. It's wherever you're looking. Myself and my older brother both have cerebral palsy as a result of premature birth. Because I was born, I suppose, a week and a half, 2 weeks later than him, the severity of my disability, I suppose, is a lot less severe in terms of my ability to communicate, which my brother doesn't have. I have some balance and fine motor issues and some strength issues. I can stand and walk with crutches and things like that, but it's a lot more practical for me on a daily basis to use my wheelchair to get around. So my mom and dad both knew that they were going to be high-risk pregnancies with both my older brother and myself. My dad had told me about hearing some pretty harsh things from a doctor about my older brother, literally from a doctor's mouth saying, yeah, you better get your blender ready, right? Yeah, because, my older brother will never be able to eat solid food and things like that. When I hear sort of stories of suggested terminations of pregnancy. My gut reaction is always, who are you to decide? How much is too much? If you would have drawn that line for my brother and I, do we get to live in 1982 and in 1976? I'm proud of my mom and dad for facing those challenges head on, and I think I turned out all right, and I'm a better person because of my older brother too. So I can't imagine my world without my brother. My positivity, almost everything that I am, I owe to the experiences that I had growing up with him. It's crazy for me to think that someone like my brother wouldn't be given a fighting chance. I can't imagine not being here, or my brother not being here, because some medical professional suggested otherwise. It kind of breaks my heart. And I think my brother is incredible, and I can't imagine myself or my parents or the world without my older brother. So it's obviously deeply personal for me, and I'm very invested in it. But I think everybody is capable of something. I don't need him to say, I love you, Chad. I know it's there. I know that he has a beautiful soul, and I know that when this life is over, I will absolutely be hugging and kissing and holding my brother, and we'll be hanging out for eternity. And that makes my day. I think that fear and the idea of I can't is really the beginning of where these laws start, or the lack of laws start. It's just this idea of fear and can't, and we need to flip the can't. We need to get rid of that T and make it can. And we've got to no longer be slaves to fear. Fear is a game changer in itself. People are always scared of what they don't understand. And so let's have those conversations, and let's lean on each other to help each other cope and help each other understand, and just embrace life the way that God intended. To lean not on our own understanding, but to trust in his ways and acknowledge him, right? We are meant to be uniquely different and beautiful children of God, and we need to stop living in fear because God came to crush all that. And it's beautiful, it's liberating when you realize that, fear is a liar, and that it's all, we all have that self-doubt. And if you come from a faith perspective, you might realize that self-doubt is the enemy creeping in, but the enemy's been defeated. We don't need to be defined by fear. And again, we need to be the light of God and the light of Christ for others, because again, we're his hands and feet, but we're no longer slaves to fear, because God came and tore it all down. And so, let's live with the dignity and the honor and the purpose that God has given us, and let's do life together, and let's crush it. There would be people who would easily look at my brother and say that he has no quality of life, he shouldn't be here. And I look at it and say, he needs to be here because he brings strength and life to people around him. And I'm better because of him. My parents are better because of him. My kids are better because of their Uncle Daryl, who has this severe disability and can't speak. But my kids, who are now 14, 11, and 7, have no fear on the playground going up to anybody in any sort of mobility device or with speech impairment or they'll talk to anybody because of the things that they've already experienced as a young child. And that's through growing up with me as their father and with their Uncle Daryl. I can't get myself into a position where people get to play God. I can't fathom that in my head. At the end of the day, we are all created for a reason and a purpose, and that may not be understandable to us even in the moments. Don't tell me I can't do something, watch me. Might it look different? Yeah. Might it take more time? Yeah. But it's going to get done because I believe in my ability to do it, and I believe that God's not going to give us a mountain that we can't climb, right? He's not going to put something in front of us that we're not capable of. Do we need to rely on him and others for strength? Absolutely, right? But we're never alone. I've had some pretty tough conversations, and it could be something as practical as someone who thinks I will never get a job because I have a speech impairment, or I can't be taken seriously because of this. And those are tough. There's been people that I have played some sports with that have degenerative conditions, like muscular dystrophy, for example, where they're going to progressively watch themselves get worse and fade away. Part of the perspective that I've always had, one is my older brother, who I've spoken at length about today, but also knowing that this is who I am. Things will not get worse for me. And I think when you throw in that piece, when you face that adversity, there's been moments where I've had conversations with friends and colleagues who are in those low moments, and it's heavy. But the faith piece comes into it for me. The idea that God is giving you a challenge that He wants you to lean on Him and lean on others for, and to be able to help people realize that we are all capable of greatness, and maybe not what the world defines as greatness, but we're all capable of greatness. We have special needs students here who are nonverbal, and I will talk to them like they are one of my students. And I see it through their educational assistants that it means the world to them as educational assistants, but also to the person. It's a person-first mentality. It's very simple. Obviously, it's easy for me because I've lived it, but it's when you start putting the person first, versus what they are capable of, or their wheelchair or their mobility device, their assistive technology, whatever it is. Person first solves a lot of problems. I've seen it with my children on the playground, having conversations, even as something as simple and innocent as going up to another individual in a wheelchair and saying, "That's my dad, he's in a wheelchair too." And that's where it starts. And then the conversation goes from there. And it's beautiful. I am a child of God, and I'm here because of Him, and my life is His. We try to own a lot of our stuff and make it about us, but at the end of the day, it's about Him and His plan and His design. I am here. I am happy. I am facing life one day at a time, because that's all I can do. And I'm surrounding myself with love, because I think that's the best way to live life. It's in God's hands to give and take away life, and that's it. That's a hard line for some people. But when it's their time, it's their time. All of our days are numbered. I see myself as an instrument of God's grace to others, and I think we all are. We just have to accept that within ourselves. And so if I can be there for somebody to provide some kind of leadership, mentorship, compassion, grace, call it what you will, let's do life together and let's get through this together, because at the end of the day, we're all, celebrating around the Lord's table and having a great time.
Chad asks, who are you to decide? Who are we to decide who lives and dies as if we're God's? What does "I am fearfully and wonderfully made" remind us of, if not that God does everything with intention? He doesn't make mistakes, and He doesn't make us all the same. Thank God for that. We are His. Each of us has a unique purpose that we were put on earth for, that only we can fulfill. And what seems like a weakness on the outside can actually give us strength, and give our kids strength, and our nieces and our nephews strength. It can teach us to accept difference. So many parents will get pregnant and think this is the wrong time. Or if they receive an adverse prenatal diagnosis, they might think, oh, this child shouldn't be born. And that's fear that grips us then. The fear that Chad identifies, and a lack of trust in God, in His timing, in His wisdom, in His strength. The majority of preborn children diagnosed with Down syndrome are aborted in the United States, and it's likely worse in Canada. We condemn ableism outside the womb, but practice the worst kind of ableism, the lethal kind, within the womb. We need to see our brothers and sisters as God sees them, wonderful and beautiful, each and every one of us. As Chad advises, we need to embrace life the way that God intended, not to lean on our own understanding, but to trust in His ways and acknowledge Him. Carol Butler, Executive Director of the Haldeman Pregnancy Care and Family Center in Dunnville, Ontario, tries to instill a similar sentiment in her clients, to relieve their fear and open their eyes to options other than abortion. Haldeman Pregnancy Care and Family Center provides parenting and birth preparation classes, moms groups, Bible studies, post-abortive care, and a host of other services. Take a step through their doors to learn more about their work in this next segment.
Sometimes people feel they have no choice. They feel cornered. They feel that the walls are closing in on them. And so it's like, don't feel that that is your only choice. There are lots of choices out there. We want to be here for everyone, wherever they're at. One of the things that we do is empower women. We equip them. We give them tools so that they can be all that they need to be, so that they can get their lives back. They're built up, they're encouraged, they're empowered to then go forward and to get a job, maybe for the first time, and be able to raise their children in a healthy way. We have a myriad of programs here at the Centre to offer to those who need our support. Sometimes when people call us, they're in distress. And so hearing a voice at the end of the phone, somebody who is caring and compassionate, to find out what their need is, and then to set up an appointment to help them to come into the centre and talk through whatever their situation is in a safe environment. Sometimes people come to us just before they're about to have their baby. That's often when they realise, I need help, I need support, I don't know what I'm going to do when I have this baby. So they come in for some birth preparation classes, and to be able to access if they have physical needs with needing baby clothing, things like that, then we'll help them with that as well. And then once they've had their baby, then if they're able to come into our programs and join our groups, then we will encourage them to do that so that they don't feel alone. I think what a pregnancy centre does is help bring people back to having community, to knowing they're not alone, to know that they're going to be supported. They'll meet other mums, they'll meet our staff, our volunteers, and they'll have a sense of belonging, which I think has got lost in our culture today. A lot of our mums feel isolated, and especially over the last couple of years with COVID, they felt very isolated. And so if they are suffering from postpartum depression, or they just feel alone, we want them to know they're not alone. It takes a village to raise a child, and so we are that village for them. If someone is thinking about having an abortion, we would like them to know that they are going to receive care, support, have somebody that will listen to them and to their story. And is this the best choice for them? How are they going to feel months, years down the road? How are they going to acknowledge what has happened to them? And so often what we hear is, I wish I had spoken with somebody outside of the relationship that I was in. If they've been pressured by a partner, a husband, to have an abortion because they don't want to have this baby, then come and speak to somebody else outside of that relationship before you make your final decision. And having that dialogue with someone, it just opens up their minds. I've seen men who have really suffered because of the decision that their partner made to have an abortion, the impact that that has had on men. It doesn't just affect the woman. And so we need to be here as community, we need to be here to support people wherever they're at. I have had a partner who brought his girlfriend in because he was wanting her to have the baby. She didn't want to have the baby. And he was connected through somebody to us, and they came in. We had a conversation. Afterwards, I pray. We pray when we see somebody, and didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And then I heard a few months later that she had decided to go ahead and have her baby. And it was just having that conversation. My journey here as the executive director has begun with my own personal experience. I have experienced 3 miscarriages before I had my 3 children. I've been through crisis pregnancy because of my health. When I had my 4th pregnancy, I had health issues. My kidney was 3 times bigger than it should have been. I had to have surgery, and while I was pregnant, and then afterwards as well. And so for me, I've been there. I've been in that place of, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through this? Having gone through the miscarriages, my heart is also to help people go through the grief journey that people need to acknowledge there's a little one that has passed away, to be able to find a place of hope and healing in their hearts, and to know that we are going to be reconnected with our little ones when we pass on, and they are in the arms of Jesus. And so that has been a big heartbeat for me. I work a lot with post-abortion women who have had an abortion either from 5 weeks to 40 years after their abortion experience. And so helping them go on their grief journey is something that it's an amazing part of this ministry that God has given us. One of the programs that we offer is to help women and journey with them who have had abortions in the past. Having worked with women who have had abortions 20 years, 40 years, I can see the effect and the impact it's had on their lives. And so having that compassion to really care for someone in that situation, to hear their story so they feel heard, is a key to them getting the healing that they need and to have hope to move forward in their own lives. I was working with one woman who had had 3 abortions, and she went through this healing journey, and it was hard and it was heavy. But we did this ceremony out in her garden. She lives out in the country, and she wanted to release 3 balloons, and she wrote letters to each of her babies, and she had named them all. And so as we went through the ceremony, she prayed, she read out her letter to her baby, and then released the balloon. And so she did that the first time, and then the second time, and then the third time. And what was amazing, it was a clear blue sunny day, and what happened was just God, as these 3 balloons joined together, the ribbons twirled around one another, and we just stood there amazed and watched as they went off until we couldn't see them anymore. The medical community is very quick to pressure somebody into having an abortion. Even if that baby maybe will only survive a few hours, or a few days, we need to get to a place where we're not afraid of going through the hard things in life. And we've seen that ourselves when a mom who she knew that her baby was only going to live for a few hours. And because of the support she received, she wanted to have this baby. She wanted to go through the rites of passage for this baby. We also have a memorial garden where we have planted shrubs, flowers, and so anyone who has experienced a loss, and sometimes that's a baby, sometimes it's a miscarriage, it's an abortion, sometimes it's even for the grandma who has lost her child and is then raising the grandchildren. And so she has planted a plant in memory of the child that she has lost who was an adult. So it's a place, it's a quiet place, it's a place to just sit and just take in the garden, and just to be able to just relax and just have some thoughts. And so this is a place where they can come and they can reflect, they can have a quiet time, and they can do that whenever they choose to. I've worked with many women over the years, and one particular, she got pregnant, and her little one sadly had brain tumor and had to have a lot of surgery and support, and sadly passed away. And so we have continued to be in contact with her. She came back 2 years ago to the community, and we planted a beautiful bush in our memorial garden in memory of her child, and she was here to do that as part of it. And so that is something that being able to continue to be there after all these years, and to just help her to know that we care about her and we think about her still, even today. So many times that adverse diagnosis can be wrong. Sometimes it's not as bad as it might have been. And so we had one client who had a baby and had trisomy 18, and the organs were outside of the body. They were being encouraged to have an abortion, but as this little one was born, they proceeded to have this child, had the surgery, and this child is now 12 years old, in school, engaged in life, and healthy and happy. And so sometimes what we see, what the medical community see, yes, sometimes it's wrong, but sometimes it's not as bad as they think it's going to be. my biggest frustrations is the people who hate us, who spread false information, call themselves pro-choice or reproductive justice, and not having conversations with us to truly find out who we are, what happens in a pregnancy centre. I've invited Justin Trudeau to come to the centre, to have a tour, to have conversation with us, to find out more. He seems to just be listening to one side of the argument, and I would just love for him to be able to come here to see what we do, to hear what we do, and that we are all about women being empowered in their lives. If somebody finds themselves in a situation where they have an unplanned pregnancy and they're wondering what to do, how are they going to move forward from this point, I would really encourage them to come in and have a conversation with us to find out the resources, the programs, the supports that they can receive, and to help them to know that they are not alone. We're here to help people during their crisis, but then for the long term afterwards, for as long as they need our help and our support. Our God is a big God. He's given us a big family, and so my hope and my prayer is that we would be able to continue to do what God has called us to do in our community and in our land across Canada, because there's many other pregnancy centres across this country who are all doing valuable work, supporting the vulnerable in our communities. When I hear the words I am, I hear God as being the great I am. That's what I hear. With the babies saying, I am here, and seeing that connection with God as being the great I am, that sovereignty of God knitting this little one together in a mother's womb. It's precious, it's special, and it means to me all life matters.
We need to get to a place where we're not afraid of going through the hard things in life. That's powerful stuff. The fact is, we will all go through hard things in life. They're unavoidable. The question is, how do we respond to those hard things? Carol describes the role of a crisis pregnancy center as providing a community and a sense of belonging so no mom feels alone. Empowering women. Sounds like honorable work, right? I mean, who could have a problem with that? But here in Canada, the Liberal Party is trying to strip crisis pregnancy centers of their charitable status. They've been accused of dishonest counseling. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. Haldimand Pregnancy Care and Family Center is well established in the community, but for many crisis pregnancy care centers, which are run off private donations and often by generous volunteers, such a shift could mean the difference between their doors staying open or closing for good. We can't rest on our laurels now that Roe v. Wade has been cast into the ash heaps of history. Life remains under threat, especially in Canada. Even those who try to intervene in the 9th hour to throw a life preserver to babies of abortion-minded women are finding their efforts now in jeopardy. The Sisters of Life also minister to pregnant women in crisis and post-abortive women. They're a group of religious sisters who, in addition to taking vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, take an additional vow to protect and enhance the sacredness of every human life. Up next, we hear from Sister Antoniana Maria on their vocation as Sisters of Life.
There's a mistaken notion that being pro-life is just caring for a woman right at that moment when she desires to have her child. As Sisters of Life and as the pro-life movement, we care for women and their children all throughout their life. It takes a village to raise a child, and so as Sisters of Life and all of our co-workers, we want to be that village. We want to be that family so that women don't feel alone in this. So we serve women who are pregnant and in need, and we also serve those who have suffered after abortion on their journey of hope and healing. Here in our Toronto mission, we have a mosaic of missions. So in the morning, we may be talking to a woman who is pregnant and in crisis and really mobilizing support around her. And in the afternoon, we may be serving a woman who is suffering after abortion and really seeking mercy, seeking healing after 20, 30, 40 years after her abortion. We're really a community that is dedicated to the sacredness of human life. So our primary mission is prayer. We spend half of our day in prayer, and then from that prayer flows everything else. So we're really dedicated to the sacredness of every human life. So that looks in many different ways. It's a mosaic. Our women tell us that the worst thing that they can hear from someone when they say they're pregnant is, "I will support you in whatever you decide." That's the worst thing, because she feels even more alone. But what she really wants to hear is, "You can do this. I believe in you. You are strong, and I'm with you every step of the way." When a woman calls us who's in crisis, she automatically becomes part of our family. And with being part of our family, we serve them all throughout the life of their child. So we have birthday parties when they turn 5, when they turn 10, when they turn 15. Thanks be to God, we have hundreds, if not actually thousands, of volunteers and co-workers of life that join us in this life-saving mission. And whether it's doctors, nurses, women who take them out for a cup of tea, men who build cribs, people who donate diapers, baby clothes, every practical thing, lawyers who can help them with immigration, people who are willing to hire them for a job, people who have housing that can offer them housing. Every practical need that a woman who is pregnant and in need and in crisis, anything that she needs, we have coworkers and volunteers that can meet that need. We really see that our role is to provide a space, a loving space, a safe place for them to have all the pressures released from them so that they can make a clear choice, which is what their deepest heart's desire is to choose life for themselves and their children. One day we received an email from a campus minister at a university in Canada, and she just sent a quick email saying, "One of my students is pregnant and gonna have an abortion. Can you help us?" So immediately I picked up the phone and I called this young woman, and for 2 hours she just unloaded all the fears, all the pressures. She didn't want to have this abortion, but the father of the baby was pressuring her. She was afraid what her parents would say. And one by one, she unloaded all the fears in her heart. As Sisters of Life, we listen and reflect back so that she experiences herself to be understood. Because so many times people just tell her what to do. But really, what we want to do as sisters is to listen to her back to life. And as she emptied her bucket and told us all her fears, then there was space for us to enter in. Every day we called her, assuring her of our support, our love, and that she's not alone in this. And we prayed with her, and she, little by little, you could see just the scales and the hardness just falling. So on the Monday before the abortion scheduled on Tuesday, she made a call and she canceled her abortion appointment. 8 months later, she had a beautiful baby boy, and I was actually there at the hospital a week later and was able to hold her little one. So now this little one is beautiful, 6 months old, and she's doing really well, finishing up her school at university, finishing her degree, and going full-time while full-time parenting. She wrote me a Christmas card recently, and she said, "Thank you. Thank you for all your love and support. I feel myself as a woman who is strong and fearless, and I trust the Lord that He has a plan for myself and my son." We got a call from one of the youth ministers in the area who one of the youth leaders was engaged and pregnant and terrified and scheduled for an abortion. And so we rushed out to the nearest parish and met with her and her fiancé and the youth minister, and we spoke with them for several hours. And one by one, her fears of being judged, losing her job, being pregnant out of wedlock, and what her parents would think, what her friends would say, being pregnant outside of marriage. Like, all these fears were driving her decision for an abortion. And so we just listened and then assured her of our support, our unconditional support. But something happened that night when she went home. She told her father, and her father got up went over to her, gave her a big hug, and said, "God doesn't make mistakes." And that, in that instant, was a game changer. She gave birth to her beautiful little boy, and so she gave her testimony at the churches, and people donated in droves to support this good cause. And she said to us, "You helped me in my moment of crisis. Now I want to pay it forward and help all these women who are in crisis." And that's amazing to us. That is the radiance of life, that life begets life. Love begets love. Not only do we serve women who are pregnant and in crisis, but we also journey with those who have experienced the suffering of abortion, and we accompany them on this road of hope and healing. Before they had the abortion, there were lies that say, "It's your body, it's your choice. You could do whatever you want. This will just be an eraser. You'll go back to the way it was." And they felt betrayed afterwards. They're the first to tell us, "Sister, after my abortion, something radically changed. I experienced depression, anxiety, substance abuse. I felt horrible. I felt like I needed to punish myself. I felt anger, regret, all the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and post-abortion syndrome." The women that come to us and reach out for hope and healing after abortion are hurting tremendously, and they desire so much to be validated in their grief. And once we acknowledge to them that the suffering they're going through is normal, this is grief, there is this release, this, "Oh my goodness, I'm not crazy." Once they're able to acknowledge the pain is real and that they're not making it up, that this is the result of the loss, the incredible loss that they've experienced in their life. It's the journey towards healing. For those who are suffering after abortion, we have a beautiful ceremony where women can entrust their child that has been lost, representing a rose, to the Divine Mercy image. And after they entrust their child to Jesus, there's a book of life. And so we keep that book outside of our chapel, and it becomes a real tangible memorial place for a loss that there's no funeral, there's no gravesite, there's no place where they can go back to remember their loss. But this book of life honors the memory of their children. One of our days of prayer and healing, which is a day-long retreat for women who have experienced the suffering of abortion, one of the women had suffered 60 years ago, hadn't told anybody, had been going to Mass every Sunday, not receiving communion, but on that day, she had the courage. So she went to confession for the first time in 60 years. And when she came back into this small group sharing, she said to all of us, "For 60 years, I felt like I was trapped. And every movement I made, I was getting more and more enmeshed in darkness and in sin. But today, I feel young again. I can get up and dance." And the radiance of her face was literally watching the dead come to life again. And that night, when we had our Mass, our closing Mass, she received Jesus for the first time in 60 years. And I can imagine all of heaven rejoicing for this one woman coming back to the Lord. And so we praise Him for it. And we see this dozens and dozens of times in our mission. So when I hear the words, "I am," as Sisters of Life, it brings me back to the words of our founder, John Cardinal O'Connor. It's in our being, not in our doing. It's who we are that matters, not what we do. And so wherever a woman finds herself, whether she's in an abusive relationship and she's pregnant and she's in need, we'll surround her with God's love and mercy. Whether it's been 20, 30, 40 years after her abortion and she feels she's trapped, she feels trapped in darkness, we surround her with God's love and mercy. The anchor is that every human life is sacred, is precious from the moment of conception until natural death. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to be able to serve on both ends, to reach out to God's love and with His mercy, with His life.
Sister Antoniana asserts that the deepest desire in the hearts of pregnant women is to choose life for themselves and their children. The knowledge that we are loved, that Jesus came so that we may have life and have it abundantly, that we are wonderfully and fearfully made, it is rooted within us. It just gets buried over time. We need to work to uncover it, to overcome the self-doubt and the pessimism. Sister Antoniana mentions the order's founder, John Cardinal O'Connor, and his emphasis that it's enough to simply be, that it's who we are that matters, not what we do. At the same time, I love hearing about how the co-workers of life and how the sisters of life use a wide range of skills, from crib building to lawyers who can help with immigration and so on. Sister Antoniana says it takes a village to raise a child, which is what the church is all about, is it not? It's an invitation to all of us to be part of this life-saving work. I hope you enjoyed meeting Ruth, Chad, Carol, and Sister Antoniana. They walk or wheel different paths in life, but the image of God shines out clearly in each one of them, especially because they try to illuminate it in others whose needs they put first. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Do your actions affirm this truth? Do you fully appreciate your identity as a child of God, loved beyond measure? And will you use this amazing gift of life to advocate for the lives of others? The end of Roe v. Wade is just the beginning. There is so much work to be done in abolishing abortion on the state level, but also on the national level. We need to transform our culture too, with our individual witness, using our gifts and unique perspectives to affirm life. It's not always easy, and we'll probably have an even harder time of it here in Canada than in the U.S. I hope, however, that these stories have renewed your fervor to enter into or preserve in the pro-life movement, in the pastoral field, which we learn so much about today, or in the educational or political field. We need you. Thank you for joining us. God be with you, and remember, you are fearfully and wonderfully made.